Yes.
I'm Melisa Taylor. I'm a resident here in Sugar Grove. I'm also one of the Kane County Board members and of course the Commissioner. There's a couple comments that happened today that I wasn't planning on saying a doggone word, but here I go. Number one, looking at, many of you know I just can't help myself. Looking at this audit that I was just looking at, this appears to me to be a financial audit, not a a criminal, a forensic audit. Is that correct? Okay, and is it normal routine every year that it's a financial audit that happens every year? Because an audit should have to be happening every year. So that means prior to this audit, following back in the years, every year there's an audit. Is that correct? Okay. Every time an audit comes out, and this one, and I apologize, I haven't had a chance to look through it all the way. Usually an audit will come back with the goods and the bads, more or less. The goods and the bads with what Pat was referring to. If there were financial discrepancies that were showing up in the past, those would have come through on an audit. That would have come through on a yearly audit that happens on a yearly basis. It is not the responsibility of the supervisor only to read that audit. It's the responsibility of the entire board. I gotta tell you guys, I've been called on the carpet. You guys all know your phones will ring if the dollars are not going where they need to go. All of us as county board members, it happens to us on a regular basis. We're responsible for watching every one of those numbers. That's our job. That's what we do. That's not day and day. As for the receipts and then the checks being paid or however that was working, you guys are looking at the finances coming to you after they've already been paid. It's your responsibility to look at every one of them, even if they've already been paid. Whether they were paid 2 weeks ago or being paid 2 weeks from now, it's still the responsibility of you as a board. The element of you guys saying, oh, but I trust him, oh, but I like him, or oh, but I've worked with him forever, that doesn't fly in the government element at all. You can love somebody. If they're writing the checks, it's your responsibility to make sure 2 + 2 = 4 at the end of the day. I also want to say, as I just said, bad bookkeeping is the responsibility of a board, not the responsibility of one. For going forward to make sure that's what needs to happen, the changes need to happen on this. It has nothing to do with whether it's Dan himself. As a board, you guys need to have responsibility on this. I know some of you are leaving here shortly as trustees. By the way, thank you for your service. I appreciate anybody that offers to work for the public. I do have another question. With the lawsuit element that you've brought into this and the $12,000, are you saying the $12,000 is for, explain to me, I've heard $7,000, then I heard $12,000. Was that yearly cost that usually happen, or is it just on behalf of this particular situation?
This situation.
And I gotta tell you, and I guess, Harry, I'll call you and Scott, were you two the ones that came for a constituent in the township to come to you with suspicions or with information, and for you two to do the investigation yourself without sending it to the police, right directly to the police station? Is that what happened? Did I not hear that right? Please.
Okay, yep, you are,
So I misunderstood?
yes, I'll clarify very quickly.
Please, if you wouldn't mind.
I went to the police department. They said, you know, you guys gotta do a state audit anyway, before they would pursue an investigation, they wanted an audit. They said, we recommend this firm, and this firm, especially, Siggets Gardner had a conflict. Some of the better known townships, said, hey, it's really your responsibility as trustees to pick a firm to do the audit. We'll review their information. The police department will take it to the state attorney. They're not accountants, they're not whatever. The audit we did was to satisfy the request from the police department. It was not Harry and my idea. It was theirs, saying to the board, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom or Steve, that's what the police department recommended. We picked from the list of auditors, we picked one that was most cost efficient to the taxpayer, not a forensic audit. They said that could run into $100,000. We didn't really, the intent is not to put someone in jail. The intent was to find out if and what was missing and present it back to the public. At the request of the police department, that is what we did as a board.
Okay, so that's this audit that's February 8th?
Yes.
Yeah? And then from that point, is that when the police station continued with their investigation?
I don't know what they did, honestly. They took it to the state's attorney. And I was not involved in any of those level negotiations, I can't speak for anyone else, I don't think any of us was. That was them, the police department and the state's attorney doing what they thought the scope of their job is.
So, and when did they notify you their end result, regardless of what it would be? When was that information given to you?
Probably 2.5, 3 weeks ago.
I think the day before it came out in the paper, that wasn't it, they called him, and that's.
Was when the police station informed you?
Police chief called me and said, we've finalized our process. State's attorney is not going to prosecute for financial reasons, and if you'd like, please swing by and pick up the rest of the information we confiscated, or didn't confiscate, but so.
They borrowed.
Yeah. And so I went over there, had a brief talk to the police chief, brought the information back, and it was here.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to see you guys do something, you're his friends, you want to look at the evidence instead of your friendship.
Can't read, we're monkeys.
Scott, let me promise you one thing. Whether I'm friends with Dan or not, I do look at the numbers. And I look at a lot more numbers than what you're looking at on a township level. I do look at the numbers. And I'm looking at the numbers. And there are many things that you said tonight that I think, number one, you should have thought twice before you open your mouth. Number two, who takes your meeting minutes? For all these meetings for the last couple of years, who takes the meeting minutes? Who's doing it?
Tom Rowe was.
Okay, Tom's doing it. Tom, how long
Well,
did it take?
I did it through December, and since January.
Okay, because all these little comments I'm hearing about, Dan said this and we said this, unless they're in the meeting minutes, it's irrelevant. Because once those meeting minutes are approved at the next meeting, it's a moot point. It's done. It's done. It's dead. I can guarantee you with the little comments you guys are saying, I said this to Dan and Dan said this back to me, I guarantee you those are not in the meeting minutes. If they're not in the meeting minutes, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
A lot of these were held, the discussions were held outside of the township meeting.
Okay, hold on. If that's the case, were you in violation of Open Meetings Act?
Yes.
Did you have a quorum in this conversation? Well,
Yes.
that's another piece of the puzzle in this.
Three, make a quorum.
No, ask Tom, did we violate the open debate having a quorum?
Quorum is.
To your knowledge.
No, not to my knowledge.
There was 2 trustees maximum, and, you know, and a lot of this is one-on-one. Jerry was there, and when the meeting with Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, were Dan, Jerry, Lee Thompson, and me. So it was 1 trustee and 1 supervisor.
You said you and Harry, you two had meetings with Dan and the Lee guy, and then you, am I not right?
Yeah. Trustees
And,
and Lee.
but you said you called Dan in
on the board, so it's
at that
three.
point.
That's
We
three.
called
Am I
Dan
not
That's
right?
three. Yeah, he said
to
that.
see if he
Read them back.
was
That's
going
three.
to resign.
That's three.
That's an
Three.
open meeting
Three.
violation.
So it was a three, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Right, correct me if I'm wrong.
Am I about to?
You're right,
No,
Melissa.
slightly. It was Harry and Steve in the meeting. They called Dan when Lee, I was not present. Okay? And Steve will verify. Dan, I talked to him on the phone, he drove over here to get in the meeting. He couldn't just, you know, that was the violation if there was one.
I'm gonna shut up.
Then you should have also walked away. Those of you who were involved, I know you weren't, but those of you who were involved should have walked away. That's a violation of the Open Meetings Act, right?
Absolutely. And it's, you know, Dan just imposing his will on something he knew better.
One of them should have walked away, should have known to
Agreed.
walk away.
That was the day before he resigned, real close to it. The thing, that's what I'm trying to say, there's a bunch of things that were wrong. Sure, everyone's responsible, everyone's culpable. It wasn't as intentional on the board member's part, in my estimation, as it was at the supervisor level. And it was things that, you know, we reconstituted the board, we've all taken ownership of different parts of it, we're all trying to make the system better. You know,
I don't really trust your judgment after the comment you made.
Tom,
It was approving the bills and
Nasty.
right.
no, she's not.
Yes.
And